Welcome to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. I'm your host, Ariane Aramburo. Today's guest is born and raised in Alaska. She's a registered nurse and now a full-time stay-at-home mom and caregiver to her 15-month-old, soon-to-be 16-month-old son, Colton, who suffered a brain injury at birth. She's very open about trying to navigate life's balances and advocates hard for medically complex children in Alaska. Please welcome to the podcast, Sarah Neely. Sarah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really nervous.
Oh, you'll be fine. And just to put that out there, you do have your phone near you. It is
do.
on silent, but if for some reason it vibrates and we have to kind of take a pause, that's all part of being real here on the Parenting Podcast. Well, first I want to start because I love what you wrote to me when we were emailing back and forth. You said you no longer consider yourself a mama bear. You're a grizzly mama.
Or mama grizzly.
A mama grizzly. I feel like that needs to be on like a t-shirt.
I agree. I was thinking about that on the way. I was like, I need to make some apparel or something because that's what Alaskan parents are up here. They're grizzlies. Let's be real.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself and motherhood. You have two kiddos yourself, Colton and a 3-year-old, but you also have your bonus baby who is 8. So
yes.
Tell me about that.
She actually came into my life when she was just about to be 2. And, we've been through the ringer with her, raising her. I always say, she didn't come for me, but I definitely learned how to navigate parenthood in a sense. She's got 2 very active, awesome parents. So I'm just the extra. We don't do the step parent.
Yeah.
That seems, it's got a negative connotation to it. So we call each other bonus.
Well, I have a bonus daughter as well, so I get it, blending families. So
it's a lot of work.
It is.
And then, when we added our daughter, who's 3 now, my stepdaughter was 5, so that was even another transition, but they're thick as thieves now and definitely acting like sisters.
Isn't that funny? Because our 2 are 8 and 7, and they're like 2 little old ladies every time they get together. Like, they love each other, and then they argue.
And then they argue.
What is going on?
I have no idea. I get to a point where I'm just like, okay, conflict resolution, learn it. I can't keep separating you guys. Just figure it out. Like, even last night, they were doing a fort together, which I was like, thank you, because I'm handling Colton's cares, getting his feeds ready, and they're just screaming at each other. So I walked up there. I'm like, okay, I'm hearing what's going on. What's the big issue? Now take 3 big breaths. Now tell me, is it that big? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay, conflict resolution. How can we fix this? And she's like, I can use this, because they were fighting over a water bottle holding a blanket.
The
I'm like,
simplest of things.
Yes. So we're definitely trying to make sure that they... bickering back and forth, that's siblings, but finding a way to navigate and communicate effectively together, and that's something that we're working on really hard.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Well, without getting into too much detail and what you feel comfortable with, tell me about Colton's brain injury and how that came about.
So when you think of like a special needs child or a medically complex child, you think of... a lot of the time there's a picture of a child with Down syndrome or a highly functioning autistic, but special needs is on a huge spectrum. And before his injury happened, I didn't even know what HIE was. It's hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. Essentially, an injury occurs because there's no oxygen going to the brain. And it happened because my uterus ruptured in labor. So he has a severe type. The prognosis isn't great. But he has a motto, hold my bottle and watch this. Because he is really fighting to do any milestone he possibly can. He's almost 16 months old. We're now learning how to roll from our back to our stomach. He's working really hard right now to get to the right. He is now all of a sudden learning how to verbally-ish, like kind of cooing. He's learning a new language right now, which is really incredible. And he wasn't expected to do that. He wasn't expected to hold his head up. He wasn't expected to learn to walk, crawl, anything like that. He doesn't do it yet. We're working on it. We're working on all the things. But there's so many limitations that are put on diagnoses like these. And it's parents who make it happen. And so that's why I had decided to create a support group, which is families of children with medical complexities in Alaska. And I've got like 20 members now. Woo-hoo.
Oh, there you go.
It's so isolating.
Facebook is so they can find you. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm having some flyers put in my doctor's offices for him because I'm like, I need to find my other parents who literally have had to make so many sacrifices for these kiddos and feel so alone because it's very isolating having a medically complex child. And so I'm trying to find my tribe.
I love that. And you were an RN, so, something you had mentioned too, being a stay-at-home mom wasn't something you were expecting to do.
No.
How's that transition been, let alone, caring for a child that has special needs?
I never thought I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. I always thought, I would enjoy that maternity leave, and then maybe I'd go back full-time, part-time, PRN, whatever it would be. But, I worked really hard to get my degree, and that was what I wanted to do. But now looking back, there's a plan for everything.
Mm-hmm.
I was meant to take the track with nursing the way I was supposed to for him. I was meant to float to the NICU for years,
Wow.
on and on and on, for him, because it makes me adequate enough, and, I can take care of him, and I'm confident in that. I have never hit pediatrics with my career, so I always say he's my CEO. He has trained me to do it. So, my nursing background, yes, has given me a lot of advantages on understanding his diagnoses, understanding the cares. He has a G-tube for all of his feeds, all of his medication. He doesn't take anything orally. He's on oxygen. He requires suctioning round the clock because he doesn't swallow. But I can handle it all, which is wild.
So you're doing this. You don't have a nurse or anyone that comes with you.
I have a nurse, luckily, who comes 3 days a week to help me.
Okay.
But I'm still home.
Yeah.
Because he has daily therapies. So it's every single day we have some type of therapy group, or we have a doctor's appointment once to twice a week. This week alone, I think I have 3 or 4 doctor's appointments to take him to.
Wow.
So it doesn't really leave time for anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the biggest struggle is, what is self-care when you're a mom? There is none here. And that's okay, because as parents, we're going to sacrifice everything for our kids so they turn out to be wonderful humans. And that goes full throttle with Colt, because he needs constant care. He needs the support and the love. He doesn't have the milestones like a typical 16-month-old.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't crawl, but he's trying. And I jerry-rig stuff. So we don't have many medical equipment, medical devices, so I jerry-rig things. I use travel pillows. I use an ACLS book, which is like advanced cardiac.
Do it works.
I put it on his back when he's in a bouncer to try to get him to sit up.
Yeah.
I bought a dog sling thing where they use it for grooming, and I'm like, you know what? This would be great to get him on all fours and supported so we can try to get him moving with crawling.
You were being innovative over there.
It's not FDA approved, and you need continuous monitoring. That is all I have to say. I actually started posting things because I'd find these random stuff I was doing with him, and I'd post it on Facebook and be like, yeah, this is what mom was doing. This is life. And I put full disclosure. You are not allowed to leave them unattended if you try this, and it's not approved.
So you mentioned and touched on it a little bit, but just kind of take me through a typical day. I'm sure every day is different, but like when are you up? Because you mentioned like round-the-clock care, and I know you have a nurse that comes in for 3 days a week, but Jesus, what does a typical day look like for you?
Well, she didn't join us until like July of last year. So there was a solid 7-8 months where it was just me, 24 hours a day. And so it's evolved with his cares. Like in the beginning, I was pumping every 2 hours and feeding G-tube and prepping milk and freezing it and all this stuff. And thank God we have community people out there willing to donate, because the donations that we received from friends, coworkers, was the reason he was able to be on breast milk for a year. Because at one point I was like, I can't do this. I'm not sleeping. I am not functioning. All I'm drinking is coffee.
Yeah.
And I felt like I couldn't hold him because I would always have pumps on. So I'm like, I'm not being able to love up on my kid because I'm handling all of his medical care and also trying to feed him. So we ended up, he needed more calories. We work with a nutritionist. He's got like 7 doctors. But we have evolved his medications and evolved his feeds. So now it's a little more routine, but then he throws a curveball. So my typical day is, we get up, we do his 7 o'clock feed. We actually put him on a chest vest to try to move the stuff in his lungs at 6 a.m. So we do 1 round of medications at 6 a.m. and get his chest moving. 7 o'clock is our first feed, and it's all prepped by me. He's on a ketogenic diet for neurodevelopment and seizure control, which is working.
Yeah,
It's
good,
amazing.
good.
He woke up after we started this. Like, that's when he started actually vocalizing. It's kind of been an amazing journey with him. But so we'll do feeds every 4 hours starting at 7 a.m., medications in between. It's suctioning multiple times an hour, depending on how his secretions are. Because if he's asleep, he actually sounds nice and quiet. Then he wakes up and it's like, oh, there's a mucus plug in your throat. Now I have to be mean. So it's literally making sure he is getting his exercises every single day. We learn from speech, we learn from occupational therapy, PT, all these things that we can do at home to further advance his development. So we're doing that round the clock with him every day. And then by the end of the night, Mama is capped.
Mama's tired.
Oh my. And mind you, I have a 3-year-old running around too.
I was gonna say.
She got into paints this morning. That's how my day's going.
Fun.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me into, how does caring for Colton affect your other 2 kids and just kind of your family dynamic as a whole?
So they love him. I cannot say enough how amazing his sisters are with him. They absolutely love him. Our 3-year-old's very in tune. She almost knows when he's going to get sick.
Really?
She gets a sad face when she snuggles him.
Oh.
It's kind of interesting. And I always have that heightened nature, too. He's been admitted 13 times to the hospital.
Oh, my goodness.
We've had fun, which that really sucks, too, because, he's my infant, so I can't leave him alone in a hospital bed. That's not fair. And he needs someone to advocate for him. So I am always there. But that puts my other kids on the back burner. And that puts a lot of strain on my husband, who is 100% supportive and amazing. That boy is obsessed with his daddy. Obsessed. He does not talk to me like the way he talks to Chris.
Oh, okay.
It's very rude, in fact. But they have seen things. They've seen EMS take him. And that is really hard to balance because, we obviously, they're exposed to medical procedures, essentially. On a daily basis. And my stepdaughter even helps me feed him. She loves it. Loves being able to help. But it can be a lot for them to see all these emergency vehicles and all these personnels. But I try to always maintain calm. And I think that was my biggest struggle in the beginning was mom brain versus nurse brain. Where's the divide? Because I can do all the nurse work, but you're very disconnected in a way. So that you don't get hurt when something bad happens, so that you can support them. And, there's been a couple times where I've had to resuscitate him at home by myself. It just comes with having a medically complex kid. But, with my other kids and with him, I stay focused. And when he's okay, when they're okay, then I can let myself go.
Wow.
But, we definitely try, especially when our nurse is here. I take Emma out, and when Evelyn's back, we go have fun while the nurse is there, and they get, they get separate time from just me constantly running around the house doing stuff. So,
how long were you in RN?
6.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said that I can't believe that you were an RN and you worked in the NICU and that prepared and transferred you for what you're doing now.
Yeah, it really went full circle. Although, even with my stepdaughter, I told my husband when we got pregnant with my daughter, I'm good from like day 0 to about a week. After that, it's all on you. You need to show me what's up until about 2 because you did this first. And it's the same thing with Colt. We planned. I have infertility as well, so we used medications to have him. We had a very set plan of, okay, we're having 2 under 2, but Colton's an infant on steroids, so we did not anticipate this much of a juggle. But it's okay.
Yeah.
I always say, he's my most high maintenance child, but he's the chillest. So I will do that any day.
Well, he's got great caregivers, in your whole family. What's working for you guys right now? I know you mentioned him. He's a little bit older, so.
We have, and one of the doctors that we originally met when we were in the ER the first time was like, don't be discouraged that you're in the ER. With a medically complex child, with a medically fragile child, the first year you're going to learn so much of what they're telling you and how they communicate, and you're going to learn the kinks as you go, and it's so true. because he is not the same kid he was 4 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. He is not the same kid. He is evolving in his own way. And so, I mean, what can you do? I'm his mom. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he's getting everything, just like I would with my girls. You know, I have to make sacrifices, and that's okay. And I'm going to keep fighting for him.
And with his diagnosis, you said you weren't familiar with what it was
No,
before.
I had no idea.
How is the care for here in Alaska for dealing with someone like Colton's type of brain injury? You know, living in Alaska, we are isolated.
Oh my gosh, we are so isolated. It is so difficult. You know, from the beginning when we were discharged the first time, we had bare bones. You go into a pediatric office, they're asking about referrals, and I'm like, that makes sense, but no. Like, I'm just trying to stay awake, you know? So you can do that. That's I'm going to let you do that. But, you know, there is a lot of... We're so isolated up here, and that's one of the big things why I wanted to come meet with you is because I want other families that are in this situation of full-time caregiving that don't fit in a box of what it looks like to be special needs. You know, we kind of think of older children who are excelling in Special Olympics, and those are the images we see, but we don't see the infants. We don't see the very start of it. And that's the most imperative time for these kids. So I want other families that are going through this, who are having to make a lot of sacrifices and feel so isolated, to know that, hey, I'm here. I'm ready to fight with you and support you. Let's get our kids together. Let's have them have a community together. You know, because up in Alaska, finding resources is... you're finding a needle in a haystack.
Have you guys had to go out of state for things
We're
for Colton's?
working on it. Yeah, we have a Tele Med in May to do the aerodigestive clinic in Seattle because we're having issues with mucus. He gets Botox. Like, there's a lot of ENT type stuff, and we are actually meeting a new one on Thursday. We're going through the gamut. But we're trying to get down there for a lot of different testing that we just don't have available here. And unfortunately, that's what you have to do. We were very fortunate to find his neurologist and his pulmonologist. They are literally the real MVPs. They have not given up on this kid.
Aww.
They go more natural remedies, which I absolutely love because his neurologist, so heads up to Dr. Marshall. She's at Ptarmigan Connections.
Yeah.
She is an angel. She has been so supportive and loving of him. She is like, nope. She always says, I love him, but I don't trust him, so this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, you know what? 100%, I don't trust him either. But she definitely takes an approach of, I don't want him in these developmental years, the very critical ones, I don't want him sedated. I want him to be able to develop as best he can and support him. He doesn't need to sleep away the next 2 years.
Right.
So we're decreasing medications. That's how we got onto the ketogenic diet, and it's changed his life. So she's a rock star. Dr. Weinstock at Subspecialties is incredible too. He, the first time I met him was like, why am I meeting you now? Like, what? And he's like, wait, we're not even talking about a tracheostomy. Why are people talking about tracheostomies? We're not there. We have A through Z first. And he has been absolutely incredible from a respiratory standpoint. I can contact them. It's almost like I'm in the job. I'm a 24-hour nurse. Let's be real.
So you're still a nurse.
I'm still a nurse. That critical thinking, it hurts your brain a lot. But, it's good for me because I'm learning a different field, and he's my boss. But I'm able to communicate with them, in a different way, saying, hey, this is what his vitals are. This is what he looks like. This is what I feel is going on. What do you recommend? And it's straight shot. We have really open communication, and that has saved me on a lot of occasions. I've gotten a reputation of, if Sarah's worried, then we have a problem.
Oh, boy.
So when we end up at the ER, they're like, uh-oh, Colton's back. That means it's bad. I'm like, I'm sorry, guys.
Well, you said even though he's an infant and, as he gets older and, even with your other kids, you're his mom and you have to advocate for them.
Absolutely.
He can't speak.
Absolutely. And I think the craziest thing in Alaska is there's not much help. Like, he's on a waiver service, and there's very limited resources even with the waiver. So luckily, we have a lot of medical expenses that are covered that are necessary because he goes through workups and EEGs and hospitalizations. Luckily, we don't have that strain, but there's no support. And so that's a big thing I'm trying to fight for is, I can't go to a regular 12-hour job as a nurse. He's my job.
Yeah.
You know, throughout the week, the one day I could probably work is a Saturday at night because I have help, which my husband's home.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like,
well, at that time you're probably asleep doing something for you. You need to, does the mom brain and the worry ever stop?
No.
No.
I'm sitting here anxious right now, making sure that he's okay but I have to trust that he's okay. And that's a big thing, is allowing that trust to develop, because, you know, in this world there's so much darkness, but you have to find the light at some point to allow yourself to actually have self-care. So I showered yesterday.
I was gonna say, what do you do for you when you get those moments? Like, what does Sarah enjoy for her? Taking a shower, like, that's a win.
I showered. That was a win.
And what do you hope, and it's not selfish, it's selfless.
Right. Well, by the time the day is done, all I want to do is lay in my bed and binge on Grey's Anatomy. I'm rewatching again. Or some random drama that is, like, so petty compared to what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, oh, really? Like, Jeremy and Chelsea, come on.
Referencing something, I know exactly what you're
Love
talking
is
about.
Blind. Yep, did that one. But, I love going for drives. I did find a very part-time flexible job as an RN. I work for an agency and do home visits, so that's kind of my weekend warrior job during the day. I get to actually go meet other families with complex kiddos, special needs kiddos, and get to hang out with them and get to meet with them, make sure they're happy with their services. And that's when Mama gets to amp up her own music.
Ah, there you go.
My girls have good taste in music, so I can't really complain. But sometimes when you hear Falling in Reverse for the 100th time in one day, you want a little bit of a break. But what I do really is, I'm trying. I'm really working on the self-care. I got a gym membership, and I told my husband I get 1 hour. 1 hour, nothing. No beeping. No suction unit. No medications. No screaming. Just 1 hour. I've gone 3 times.
That's 3 is a win.
I'm still winning. I'm trying. But I go to a therapist because this is a big transition, and I work on my support group because I don't want other families to feel alone. So my big goal this summer is actually, as to do for myself, I want to get outside more, and I want Colton to come with me. I don't want him to be a lump on the ground. I want him to experience the world, because you can tell he is learning things. He's just kind of trapped in his body. And that's a part of the brain injury. It essentially went into cerebral palsy. And there's a huge spectrum on that, too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of umbrella diagnoses that I call out for him. He's got like 7 or 8 that are the main ones, epilepsy. So it really doesn't stop. It's 24 hours a day, and I, for a long time, was sleeping maybe 2 hours a night.
Oh, my goodness.
Because beeping would wake me up, or I could hear him, and he needed help. And, you get into that innate nature. And eventually I would hope that that phase goes away. But until then, I'm going to do everything I can for him, because he needs me to.
And your community, so another plug for that. So is this on Facebook?
It's on Facebook.
What do people need to search? You mentioned you're going to put out some flyers.
Yeah.
If they're listening, they're like, I need to speak with her. I need
Come
to be
hang
involved
with
in this.
me. I need people, man. So it's Families of Medically Complex Children - Alaska. It's on Facebook. It's full range. Basically, I want to make sure that everyone who has a medically complex child like this, or even anyone that is having to make a lot of sacrifices in their life in order to make sure that their kids are getting absolutely everything, which, let's be real, every parent is that way. Yeah. So, but it's really to make sure that they don't feel so isolated in such a big state, and being able to swap resources. Like, we don't like this particular doctor, we're not jiving. Who would you recommend? Or, hey, I'm just starting on this. Anyone have any information? Oh my goodness, I am stressed out about this, or my kid's back in the hospital. Let us be your tribe. I want to be able to get out and have these families know that they're not alone. Disability does not start later in life. Not every time. It can start at the very beginning, and navigating those first few years is essential. And for especially neurodevelopment, all your time goes into that kiddo so they have a fighting chance for independence. And it looks different for everybody. But I don't want these families to feel like they're fighting a fight by themselves.
Have you met families, because you have the medical background and going into this, obviously there was still a lot that you needed to learn, but what's been hearing from other families who may be just be coming into this brand new with no medical background?
Yeah, and that breaks my heart. I really want to say, I'm very lucky to have the background I do. It has set me up for success. It breaks my heart when other families don't have that because, they went a different path or whatever, and it's brand new. It's scary. It breaks my heart because they need to advocate, but they're still learning all this medical jargon, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I always go in there and say, I'm not his nurse, I'm his mother. Don't treat me like a nurse. I don't want to miss something. Speak to me like a human. Because if I miss something, because I'm being all nurse brain, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. I go into work mode. No. In those moments, I need to be mom. So what I have to say to those parents is, I'm here to help you. Like, if you've got questions, we all need to band together. Alaska's a big state, but we are so small. Like, the lack of resources, the lack of assistance, the lack of support for really complex kids, it is isolating as hell. And I want them to know that they are not alone, and we are all here to support each other. And that way our kids also have someone to interact to. And I've actually met in person another HIE mama.
Aw.
Her daughter is about the same age as Colton, and we actually got to have like a play date because she has a toddler too.
Oh, I
and
love
so
that.
They
Here
had
locally?
fun.
Yay,
Yeah.
okay.
So she's actually like 10 minutes from my house.
Oh,
so
perfect.
Right? I was like, we're having a play date. And she goes, yes, please. And even her HIE baby is completely different than Colton.
Really?
And one of the big things I told her before we even met in person was, there's going to be some envious moments. Both of our kiddos have this diagnosis, and it's so different for everybody. Not one case looks the same. And I told her, I'm just going to say outright, I am so jealous of you, and I want you to know this because you might see Colt and be like, I'm jealous of you. And the feeling is mutual because her kiddo can laugh, can scream. She screams. This poor mama, she's like, oh my God, I know I should be thankful, but dang.
Yeah.
But she eats by mouth.
Really?
Oh. Colton doesn't do that. So I told her right off the bat, I'm just going to let you know, I'm super jealous of you. But, we have to celebrate each other's kids and each other's milestones. And so I think that was the big thing, is just being open to the fact that it's okay to feel jealous. It's okay to be envious. I have friends who have kids the same age as Colt, and he is nowhere near that.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart. But I also get to celebrate every day those little gains that he makes, because what else are you going to do? He is who he is. He's going to follow his own timeline. He's going to literally say his motto, hold my bottle and watch this, because even if he's asleep, he's taking in information.
Oh, well, you showed me a picture of him. He's adorable. He is so sweet.
He's beautiful.
Shout out to Colton and, of course, your other two daughters. Final thoughts, anything that you would like to share or mention, either on this topic or just in general, that I didn't ask?
I think the biggest thing is just, we are in a very large state, but we are so disconnected from the lower 48. There's a lot of advances in medicine, and we have to hunt them down, and that's really sad. But a lot of these parents that are handling this and now are full-time caregivers going to single incomes, it's hard, but they don't have to feel alone. And I spent the last year feeling so isolated because people don't get it. They stare at you when you have to suction them. The beeping happens. People are like, what's going on? Or the fact that he looks so normal. Some injuries you can't see. And we need to, as also a community, realize that there's disability everywhere. I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I was exposed to that. And I was very open to these kids. I actually loved hanging out with the special ed kids because they're so cool and so happy.
Yeah.
They're so happy.
Carefree.
Carefree. Exactly. And it's like, we need to create a world where that's okay. And we should be able to support these families and their fights and just be so much more open about the possibility that there are different people in this world that don't look like you or don't behave like you. But they're still people to be celebrated and to be so excited that they're here. Because Colton, I'm sorry, he's going to change the world. And, that's my big mama pipe dream. All my kids are going to change the world because they are all so attentive and so in tune and so compassionate and excited. And they're going to change the world. And that's the big thing, whether you have a special needs kid or if you just have a neurotypical kid, it's, everyone's got their thing. Yeah. But we are creating the next generation, and we have to have inclusion. We have to. Because he might not end up in schools like regular kiddos. He might have a teacher come to his house, We don't know how that's going to go. We're very much in the beginning, still navigating this. I'm just happy he is not in the hospital for 2 months. Yeah. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. We got at the door.
2 months. Because 13, I'm done.
Oh, man.
Done.
Well, Sarah, your story has been incredible to listen to, and I'm proud of you. If you haven't heard that lately, you're doing a phenomenal job. Keep doing what you do, Thank you. This is the start to advocating and getting that awareness out there. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. I know people listening to this, and we want you to share this podcast to someone that's going through the same thing, and also the community on Facebook. Yeah. We want people to join that.
I would really love that. I mean, I think we should band together, and if I sound jumbled, it's because I'm exhausted and I didn't get enough caffeine today. So
you did an amazing job. My hat goes off to you from one mom to another.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for being vulnerable again and sharing your story, and thank you all for listening to another episode of Parenting in the Far North, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Sarah, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.